we win this game and they've done well, and that would put the All Blacks back on track, I think.
Some people, you've always said, are born once they get that hands on that jersey. They just seem like it's theirs and they're there by right. I think this guy, to me, is outstandingly the best player that we have introduced into the All Blacks this year.
To me, this game in Twickenham is all about possession. If we win the possession, we could win the game.
DSPN is brought to you by Novus Glass, proud partner of the Special Olympics New Zealand. The Special Olympics New Zealand National Summer Games is in Christchurch, Otautahi, this December. Across New Zealand, Aotearoa athletes, clubs, volunteers and families are getting ready, training, supporting each other and celebrating as the flame of hope travels down the country. Text Novus to 3598 to support our athletes. That's Novus, Novus, to 3598 to support our incredible athletes at the Special Olympics in Christchurch, Otautahi, this December. Notice it, Novus it.
Welcome to the DSPN.
Team New Zealand's in trouble.
Oh, he's done it again, Ricky Herbert.
The Devlin Sports Podcast Network.
DSPN, it is always a pleasure and a privilege on this program to be chatting to a bloke who, when I grew up watching rugby, was one of my heroes. And I know that you don't like me saying that, Mex, but it's worth a mention because when you were playing for Wellington, and I remember that before I remember everything else, that 1981 side, which did the double, Ranfurly Shield and winning the National Provincial Championship, it was magnificent. You're such a brilliant and worthy and committed servant for our country too, over so many years and so many consecutive matches for the All Blacks. And so I like to welcome you onto the program and always say, as a dumb old fan, thank you so much, mate.
It was a pleasure. 81 was a good year. We beat the Springboks as well.
That's right, mate. Yep.
So it was a big year.
Yeah. Let's talk. We're going to talk about the All Blacks, Scotland, and get into all of that. And I know that the word in your mind is reality, and you want to dish a bit of reality up. But I've been harping on all week about how mightily impressive that Springbok side was against France. I've been copping it like a chook. People are saying, oh, no, you're exaggerating and overrating them and everything else. Mex, one of the hallmarks of great All Black sides, and I don't need to explain this to you, is winning when you have to win, winning when it matters most, and winning away from home when it matters most. And to me, down to 14 in that second half, they ticked every box in that second half. That was an awesome performance, 3 tries to none. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, well, the Springboks haven't necessarily worried me too much in the past. I know that they're our biggest opponent, really, and they're the hardest team to beat. But I always thought we could beat them because we have the ability to move the ball and find space, much more so than they could. And they've got a slightly different game where they kick it, put the ball in the air, put a lot of pressure on you, make mistakes, kick a few goals. They play a more traditional brand of rugby, whereas the All Blacks have an expensive brand which had the ability, with a good referee who let the game go, had the ability to beat them all day, every day. However, that has changed, and I think you'd have to compliment Tony Brown on that. So he's made a big difference to their backline and a number of subtle selections, I suppose. Not the blasé selections of Russie, but a couple of individuals have come through, particularly at 10. Which is a very dangerous position to have a world-class player who can run the ball and has got sort of extra gas is a big bonus. It sort of reminds me a little bit of Andrew Mertens, actually, in many respects. Anyway, I think that was a hell of a game, and I was waiting to judge the Springboks against France in Paris. Now, you can judge a team, any team in the world, you send them to Paris to play against the French, and if you beat them, you've done well. If you beat them like the Springboks did, you've more than done well. Because remember, they had a player off, for about half that game. They were playing with 14 men. And there were cards everywhere, by the way. I think it's got out of control. And I think the World Rugby have to look at this with the referees. Every single game, there's players sent off the field. Now, that's ridiculous. Because in the past, I've said when 15 plays 14, it's not a fair indication. So something has to be done with the rules. It's bloody madness. But anyway, now I've had my bitch. Getting back, Tony Brown's made a big difference to Springboks. So look out. They've not only got this massive forward pack that have a real abrasive attitude towards rugby and a dominating sort of go forward factor, they've now got a backline that can damage and destroy. And so they're a real adversary for anybody, especially if you're playing them in the Republic.
Well, we got that next year, haven't we? 3 out of the 4 tests. I thought Sasha Feinberg Ngomzulu was awesome, and I rated him on Monday in the immediate aftermath that I think that he's potentially the next Dan Carter in terms of world rugby. He seems to have all the skills. He bounced back from a couple of awful kicks. He kicked a couple of goodies, bounced back from a couple that he shanked, and then it didn't seem to affect him. Wants his hands on the ball the whole time, wants to control the game, seems to play with a really good attitude and mindset. Afterwards, he says all the right things. He's a very humble bloke, and he's setting that back line alight. Yeah, they can play in 3 or 4 different ways to hurt us now, Mex, as you say, and that is dangerous.
Yeah, and also I think that Rusty Erasmus with Tony Brown has got someone with, very, very clear observation skills, Tony. Tony sees the game. He sees the game beautifully in clarity, I reckon. And, you can see when those two sit together now, you can see that Rusty's sort of firing up and yelling into the microphone and Tony's just looking at him and smiling. I mean, Tony's so cool, calm and collected. It's exactly what Rusty needs. In fact, it's what every international selection team needs, is a Tony Brown. So, yes, they are going to be awesome in this next 12 months. And I think we are making progress too. The All Blacks are making progress. But the Springboks are ahead of us at the moment.
Yeah, they are. And you've got to cop that. You've got to admit that. And look, it's not a bad thing to admit because coming from behind the guy that's in front gives you a lot of advantages. You can actually sort of sit there and you know that you've got space to improve and you can look at it and think, how much have they got to improve? That's the worrying thing for me. I don't think we've seen the best of them yet either, Max. I agree with you. I don't think we've seen the best of us. I don't think we've also seen the best of them. I think they can get better.
Yeah, they'll get better. There's no doubt about that. And I think we'll get better, but we're just one step behind at the moment. But there's a lot of talk about the Springboks developing 30 players of strength or 2 in every position.
Yeah.
Well, the All Blacks have done that too. One may say unintentionally, but maybe it's intentionally. I don't know. But when you look at all those positions in the back line, with a possible exception of 9, there's 2 players in every position that we'd be totally happy with in any international. And you go back into the forwards now, and certainly Jason Ryan has been doing a great job with his front row. I think the Springboks are doing a great job with their front row too. They are attacking every team. They beat France in the scrum in Paris.
Yeah.
Now, that is no easy task. So, that's fantastic. So they've got an awesome forward pack, and we've got a growing forward pack. We've found a couple of locks too, who are genuinely world-class size as well and ability to get ball and clever. I think these 2 young players remind me a little bit now of Whitelock and Retallick. They're a bit bigger even than Whitelock and Retallick, and they're good. So this is pleasing.
I won't go that far. Hang on a sec. I actually liken them more to Ali Williams and Chris Jack back in the early 2000s because Whitelock and Retallick, I hold, they're 2 of the greatest locks. Sir Colin Meads, obviously, but those 2 both played over 100 tests for the All Blacks. So at the moment, I've got a little hesitation because these guys are so green and so new. But at the same time, I do respect, obviously, what you're saying about they're clever players. You look at Holland, Mex, how impressed with that guy are you? We keep hearing about rest and rotation. This guy's played every single test this year apart from 1, I think. And he plays most of the match as well. Some people, you've always said, are born once they get that hands on that jersey. They just seem like it's theirs and they're there by right. I think this guy, to me, is outstandingly the best player that we have introduced into the All Blacks this year. He seems like an All Black, and you talk about it being up here as much as everything else.
Well, there's no debate here because everything you've said is absolutely correct. Retallick and Whitelock are in a league of their own at the moment because they did play so many games together and dominated the game worldwide. And you're right, the better comparison is probably Chris Jack and Ali Williams. But I will say that these guys have got real promise. Derry is also a 3rd one. So we've now got 3 world-class size locks and, of course, our captain. So this is great. So there's going to be competition, not only in the front row, but also in the second row. Our problem in this team is our loose forwards. That is our problem. We've got depth everywhere, but we haven't worked out the loose forwards. Now, my reckoning for the game against Scotland, can we go on to the game against Scotland now?
By all means, mate.
Okay, so I reckon we had the smallest loose forward trio, the shortest loose forward trio in the world that played last week. Now you think back, and maybe that's back. I mean, I think in the 70s, did we have? We might have had, two players that were short. I think Alex Wiley had the number 8 berth at that stage. And there were a lot of guys that were just open side flanker size, and that's what we've actually got at the moment. Now you can't play the game where possession is king if you've got 3 loose forwards who are short, unless somebody else is winning ball. Now, my big problem with the game against Scotland is we were up 17-0 at half-time.
Playing
pretty
well.
Impressive, wasn't it?
Yeah.
17-0 at half-time, and I thought that's pretty good. What happened in the second half is the Scots came back. Now, why they came back, there are a number of reasons for that. One, we may have let them back into the game. That's one reason. Number two, they won a hell of a lot more ball than us. So at half-time, we'd won 53% of the ball. At the end of the game, the Scots had won 53% of the ball, and we'd won 47%. So we didn't win enough. So we played Scotland at Edinburgh. So if you're an All Black team and you go away and you want to beat every team in the world like we've wanted to for 100 years, then you've got to go to their ground with their atmosphere, and with sort of local referees. When I say local referees, there may be English referees who are used to refereeing in the Northern Hemisphere, different from the rugby Southern Hemisphere.
But we
So
had
what
Nick
I'm
Berry in
saying
that
is
game. We did have Nick Berry in Aussie in that game.
There's lots of things that favour the home team. So to go and beat the home team, you've got to get more than your share of possession. You have to get over 50%. So against Scotland, we only got 47%.
Pretty close.
So you'd have to say, is that enough? Absolutely not. Is it good enough for an All Black team? Absolutely not. Are we going to beat everybody if we get 47%? Well, probably not. So, we need to get more ball. So how do you get more? And you've got 3 loose forwards who are all sort of really good with the ball in hand, but they're not winning much ball in the air. Now, by half-time, the Scots had worked out that we only had 2 guys in the line-out. So they started throwing it towards the back. So most of their ball was won at the back of the line-out by this guy called Brown. And he was, I don't know, Gregor Brown. Now, that sounds pretty bloody Scottish to me. So I looked up the stats on him. He's been around for a while. He's only 24, but he played for Scotland under 20s. And, he's about 1.94 metre, I think. So he's tall. And that's where they were winning ball. They were winning ball at the back of the line-out, which is really dangerous ball, because you open up the short side. And so I think that was the problem, is there was a possession factor. And, of course, the game is influenced by decisions that are made by the referee, whether they're good or bad, it doesn't matter. Decisions are made. And I thought there were 2 distinct. Nick Berry, I thought he had a great first half. I thought he had a terrible second half. And why that was, I don't know. There's another reason too. I think, not only did the Scots work out that we were short of line-out forwards and moved it to the back, but they also contested the ball in the air. They didn't kick the ball out. We were kicking the ball out in the end, and the line-out count at the end, they beat us in the line-outs total. It was 13-10, I think it was, in line-outs. So, there's a lot wrong with what we did. One little thing I want to add too, it's possible that this team is quite a young team. And the game that played on the weekend at Murrayfield, there are a lot of players that are pretty new to the game at that level. Now, I'm a great believer in mental strength, and I'm wondering whether we have the mental strength at the moment. So you go out, you win the first half 17-0, you come in and you lose the second half. In the end, we made a comeback at the end. So that showed me that we've got character.
Yeah.
That showed me we've got spirit. But the first 20 minutes or 25 minutes of the second half, Scotland beat us. There's no doubt.
Yeah, but
we were up
Max,
17-0.
You're too experienced. You know that there is no way that in a match like that, with everything riding on it and that team of theirs, they are going to have patches throughout the game where they are going to get the ball and they are going to dominate. It's how we, weather that, isn't it? And both against Ireland and against Scotland, as you say, we came on big time in the last 20 minutes, last 15 minutes. That's what you want from our All Blacks, isn't it?
Yeah, you can but you've got to be able to shut a team out. And, we're up by, they had no points at half time.
No.
We had 17. We had to start that second half like we started the first half and just dominate and shut them out of the game. But we didn't. So I don't think we were mentally tuned like we were at the beginning of that game. So that might question their mental skills. So that's a factor that has to be looked into. Right, now we're heading down the road to England.
Yeah.
Now, everyone knows when you play England at Twickenham, it's not easy. It is a hard game. Very, very hard. It's hard for everybody. It's hard for the touch judges. It's hard for the referees. It's hard for the coaches. It's hard for the players. It's just the way it is. It's a great stadium. It's a wonderful stadium, possibly the world's best rugby stadium. And, it's a hard place to win. And our record at Twickenham is not as good as it is everywhere else in the world. So I think that we're going to have a challenge on our hands.
Howie, this is the big match, mate.
They're going to have 4 guys in their forward pack that are over 2 metres tall. Now, if we play the same team that played against Scotland, we'll have 2 guys that are over 2 metres. So you can't tell me by half-time they would have worked out where they can throw the ball in the line-out or where they can kick the ball at kick-off time. So it's aerial possession that worries me. If England beat us in possession at Twickenham, they'll beat us on the scoreboard as well. So
in that case, you're adamant that Simon Parker has to come back in then into that loose forward trio, if that's the case.
Yeah, Simon Parker hasn't proven to be a ball winner. That's the only thing. He's an unproven quantity at this stage. Vi, who is injured, he's about the only guy that I can see at the moment who's proven at the highest level as a loose forward who can win the ball.
But we don't have him. Yeah. So what do we got to do? We've got to make do. We've got to make do on this, don't we?
We found Parker. They've discovered Parker, one guy who can compete in height and size and length of arms, possibly getting an opposition ball, but I haven't seen him win an opposition ball yet. So, he's an unknown quantity at this stage, but I don't think they can afford to go into, we're talking about the loose forwards, bloody long-winded, but I don't think we can afford to go into Twickenham with 2 locks and no loose forwards who can win the ball in the air, particularly opposition ball in the air. And
with the lifting and that these days, though, when you've got a guy, and let's talk about the old measurements, if you're 6'4" instead of 6'6" or 6'7", and you're being lifted, though, should it really make that much difference? As long as you've got somebody who's reasonably spring-heeled, shouldn't you be able to cover that other option in terms of having 3 jumpers, especially someone at the back?
And that's a good question that a lot of journalists don't understand. We can get our own ball. Do you know in that game against Scotland, we never lost one of our throws?
Well, and you look at the improvement then from the Ireland test, where the line-out was really mucky, wasn't it, in that test? And so we actually got it together again. So that's a great stat to have. And I think we did that against Argentina, Max. If you go back, I think we had a crazy record of 21 or something of line-out. So on our own throws, and so obviously, that's been fixed up. So that's good. But when you're throwing at the back, just look at the trajectory of the ball. It's coming down by the time it gets to what I'd call the number 8 position in the line-out, that last position, right? So you don't actually perhaps need a guy that's 6'7" to get that ball. Maybe.
No, but he's not jumping by himself. If you want to win an opposition ball, you've got to have somebody lifting him because the guy that you're marking is going to be lifted. They know it's going to 7 in the line-out or 8 in the line-out. We don't know that. We don't know where it's going. So how many guys can we lift? We're lifting 1 at the front. We're lifting 1 in the middle. Can we lift 3 at the same time? No,
probably not.
Can't.
No, you're
can't
right.
Lift 3.
Yeah,
so they're going to throw it to where we haven't got somebody lifting. So you're not going to win ball. Actually, Vi did win a couple of lineouts on the opposition throw without being lifted because he was really tuned in one of those games earlier this year. So, every now and again you can win an opposition ball without a bit of help, but you actually need help. Because that's the game now. The game is lifting is legalised. It's not like the old days where it was a scrap to see who could get a hand to the ball. And that that arm closest to the opposition was a very busy arm, and often it was the outside arm.
Yeah, the
that
outside.
you'd
Yeah.
sort of- you'd get the ball with,
Till they change
and then
the
you
rule.
might have to have a guy like Cowboy Shaw pushing the guy that you're marking,
Pushing.
so that you can get a clear
It's a nice
jump
way
at
of
the
putting it.
ball.
There you go. Yeah.
When the referee's on the other side of the line, of course,
Uh-huh.
all those sorts of things had to go, and they have gone. So now we've got lifting. You cannot lift three guys competitively very easily in the line out. So, that's the problem. So to me, this game in Twickenham is all about possession. If we win the possession, we could win the game. If we lose possession like we did against, and these guys will be better in winning the ball than the Scots. If we lose the possession battle, we'll lose the game.
You sound worried
That's
to
what
me.
I'm saying.
You sound as though we're going into this game worried. I think England are on a good. They've won 8 in a row or something. They easily beat Australia. They battled a bit against Fiji, but they still got a 20-point win. But they've been targeting this game, haven't they? And this game is as important for them as it is for us. I'm already calling this the definer for our season. If we win at Twickenham, I think we can probably. I mean, we can wrap the Grand Slam up. We are going to beat Wales, and I think we can probably end the year feeling pretty good. Obviously, South Africa are up there, but we're feeling pretty good. If we lose against Twickenham, Mex, by God, I mean, what does that do to us? Sets us right back, doesn't
I'll be
it?
sitting in my lounge at 4:00 in the morning watching the game.
Mm-hmm.
And if the All Blacks win this game at Twickenham, I will stand up and give them a standing applause, because this is a hard game to win. And, I've played a few games at Twickenham.
Yep.
And they're bloody hard.
And you've lost
Even
there
if you're
too.
better than them.
Mm-hmm.
They're still bloody hard for some reason. Don't know why it is. That's the way.
Well, it's their
that
home
is the way
ground.
it is.
It's their home ground, home crowd,
So
mate.
we win this game. We win this game, and they've done well, and that would put the All Blacks back on track, I think, bearing in mind that there's another opponent in the Southern Hemisphere who scares the shit out of every other team in the world.
Yeah, they do.
We're about the only team that aren't scared of the Springboks at the moment. And I think we're a bit worried about them too. So, this game is a big game for the All Blacks. This does define our season. I absolutely agree with you. I'd love to know who the referee is.
I know he's
Referee
Piani.
needs
He's
to be
Piani.
strong.
He's the Italian guy, Andreas Piani.
I said the referee has to be strong. He has to have the ability to overrule those people that are poking their nose in from, the unofficial referees on the sideline. But the Italian referee is strong in a game like England versus New Zealand at Twickenham. Ooh, I don't think there's too many Italian referees that are strong enough. So we have to win 55% of the ball, no less. We win less than 55% of the ball, I'm a worried man.
All right, let's finish on a couple of things. I know that you said there's a lot of, referee dominant, games that we've been watching lately. You can't complain about any of the yellow cards that he dished out against us against Scotland. 2 of them were like professional fouls, and the other one, Artie was in a position where they're going to go. Though that's just the game these days. It's more about our discipline, isn't it? Because 2 of those yellow cards, especially Satiti and also Leroy Carter, those were just cards that were unnecessary cards that put the team back under a lot of pressure. We used to have a lot of problem with this, and then we corrected it, I thought, during the year. That was just a real regressive step, that was. We got to keep 15 on the field. That's really paramount against England.
Yeah, I think my message is probably to the rule makers. You've got a rule book that's too big, and there's too many reasons why you can blow the whistle. In some respects, rugby league is more simplistic in that.
Oh, it's a
regard.
much, yeah, totally. Yeah.
And it's time we address this area. And World Rugby have to have a serious look at the rules and taper the rules a certain amount. Otherwise, it's the game becomes fickle when there's so many marginal decisions being made, or decisions being made that aren't absolutely necessary. The game becomes fickle, and when you have a fickle game, you don't necessarily have the best team that wins the game. And we've seen that this year, where the Springboks have lost a game that they should never have lost to Australia. We lost a game to Argentina, which we should never have lost. The game is more fickle. So that's why you go into a game like Twickenham, and it's anybody's game, I'll tell you. I'd love to see the bookmakers' odds on that, because...
Oh, we're favourites. We're slight favourites, yeah.
We're favourite?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, I would say that, in my opinion, my humble opinion, looking at the way the All Black team is playing at the moment, they can be beaten. I'm looking at the way the English team is playing at the moment, and they look hard to beat. I reckon they look better than they've looked for many years, this English side. I think they've been building slowly, and I think they've now got depth, and I think they know what they're doing. This is going to be a tough game. If ever I thought the All Blacks might lose or might be well matched, it would be this game.
Huge thank you to Novus Glass for sponsoring this episode of the DSPN and for being a proud partner of the Special Olympics New Zealand. This December, over 1,200 incredible athletes, along with hundreds of volunteers, coaches and other support staff, will be making their way to Christchurch or Tautahi for the Special Olympics New Zealand 2025 National Summer Games. Novus Glass is proud to be supporting something special, and you can help support the athletes too by texting Novus to 3598. That's Novus, Novus 3598. Thanks again, Novus Glass, for supporting us here on the DSPN. Windscreen, crack or chip, notice it, Novus it.
DSPN.